Yeah. Hey everybody, Dooley here. Have you ever wondered what it's going to be like for a human to go into Equestria and meet other creatures there? I mean, you can't just walk up to others and expect them to trust you, or can you? You see, Pony, there's a very interesting model from Meyer Davis and Shorman, which talks a little bit about how trust really is created. We have ability, benevolence, and integrity, and all of these are some things that you can demonstrate to a pony in Equestria, and they will understand this as trustworthiness. Of course, this is not something you should directly say, but of course, subconsciously, this is how all of these things work. You have to be a very honest pony with them and truly make it seem like you really want the best for them. And ponies will understand this. And if you compare pony society to human society, they're generally a little bit more, super friendly, super trusting. We've seen this in the many instances of the show, like especially in Generation 4 movie when the Storm King attacked and everyone was like super curious, like, oh, they're probably gonna be nice. But it of course does raise this interesting question. What influences this notion of trust at the very beginning? Like, what leads to these three factors being set in the way they are? Well, introducing the attitude theory, and this is an important one because it ends up dictating how we react to new experiences, and it says that based off of things that we have experienced in the past, our reaction to the new influences may change. So, pretty self-explanatory little example here is if you're a tech whiz, you like technology, you like having the newest equipment on hoof, then of course when new technology gets introduced, you're going to be very happy that it is around and want to learn more about it. But say if you don't really like technology, you've never really had much of a phone, and then suddenly, someone tells you, hey, you now have to have this technology because it's mandatory or something, you're probably not going to be all too happy about it. And this is, turning back to what we have learned about trust. Of course, your experiences and the perceived risk that may influence ultimately if you're going to give something your trust are also an important thing when it comes to actually trusting something new like technology or a new creature like humans that you may run into. Pretty curious thing, but is it really this easy though? I mean, if you talk to ponies, it is a pretty interesting thing on how they work. We've talked a little bit about attitude, but if there's one thing we also have to talk a bit about with ponies is technology, because for them it has changed pretty drastically, might I say. In Generation 4 especially, technology wasn't so prevalent, but every pony, there's something that must have also happened that gave them technology. What that is, we don't know. But we do know that pony kind in Generation 4 split up every pony. That's an interesting thing. When certain parts of creatures separate, then you give the opportunity for them to develop differently every pony. And it separated into Earth ponies, unicorns, and pegasi. And this is where it gets curious, because unicorns, they used to have their magic. They pretty much did everything with magic, from levitating pens, writing things, reading, eating, everything involved their magic. Then for the Pegasi, they had some pretty interesting mechanical knowledge. They had a factory which made weather, and the Earth ponies, compared to that, had, well, not much of anything. They had basic farming equipment, but that was about it, every pony. We never actually seen any big technology happening, so when the time came between Generation 4 and 5, the technology disappeared, ponies. Or not, the magic disappeared. Get it together, Julie. The magic disappeared. And, of course, for unicorns who had been relying on this whole time, remember what we said about attitude? they were suddenly, lost. There's nothing. The one thing you have structured your whole life around is gone, so you can't function normally anymore. The thing your society has relied on is gone, so you can almost explain how they just became almost depressed in a way by the time we find them at the beginning of Generation 5, but it also really highlights the opposite side, how some civilization like the Pegasi, who I'd already say had a little bit of technology on their host, but now that Princess Celestia was not really in power anymore, and they had a new ruler, like Pip, as we would learn, who actively promotes this technology. Of course, the populace would catch on to this, and it would be a very interesting process because of the diffusion in every pony. Diffusion explains how certain things like innovation spread throughout a populace, and it tells us that it starts with a small group of individual people, and in this case for the Pegasi, it could very well have just been the rulers, and they would end up spreading it in order to, tell everyone, hey, we can still fly, Pip is awesome and everything, and this would lead to technology being put out to most of them. And of course, though, every pony, the other end of diffusion tells us that there's always going to be a small group of people that is just going to be very slow to accept new things, and this may have also existed there, but we know of a pony who fills that role very well. We'll get onto that. Of course, for the Earth ponies, we do notice in Generation 5 at the very beginning, they seem to have some technology going for them. They have like the little trams that we see in Maritime Bay, but they definitely don't have as much high tech as the Pegasi. They don't have the screens hanging everywhere in the skies and everything, so they have advanced, but not as much. And I guess considering that ponies or Earth ponies didn't have this huge technology back in Generation 4, it's understandable that they didn't advance that much, but at the same time, it does also explain why they never regressed. It's because they, it's kind of what they did, and it almost feels like natural progression, whereas for the Pegasi, considering they may have already had more technology, it also makes sense the way that it happened, but especially because the leaders may have enforced it, and in, Generation 5, we do learn that, of course, that the queens especially are promoting the technology, and that is also kind of why we see the screens and everything, and ponies have pretty much accepted it for what it is, but of course exceptions do exist, ponies. And when we finally come into Generation 5, all the new technology is there, all of the ponies are supposed to get together again. It is an interesting thing because once again we learn about diffusion every pony. It happens again when the ponies are brought together and the whole magic thing happens. We have a small group of ponies, once again, in this case being the main 5, that have, started the whole friendship magic thing, and they're spreading it to many ponies, and because the technology is there, it happens pretty rapidly, ponies. And it happens quickly. It seems surprisingly at first, given how much time passes between the first movie of Generation 5 and the second special, but it would make sense. However, we also are told that there is still a small group of ponies that resent magic, and rightfully so, because diffusion tells us this. And this small group would be some ponies like Posey and some of the... I think Hitch used to be in that as well to some degree. But it's something that can change over time, every pony. That's the big word, every pony. Change. Accepting change depends on 4 different things. Innovation, readiness, like if you're willing to accept innovation quickly, depending on the norms of the social system, like say if it is very common to accept new creatures into a society like we've seen it with Ponykind, and we also have the knowledge depending on what we're supposed to accept. Like if we know a thing or two about what we're about to say yes to, what we're trying to change, then of course it's going to be a little bit easier to make an informed decision. The 4th thing is or better said, technically there's 5. The 4th thing is the decision if we're going to say yes or no, and the 5th thing is how we can ultimately implement this. So say if we learn about a human coming to Equestria, and they're sort of nice and it's sort of easy to work with them, and they're super friendly, they're a little bit like pony kind would also be, then it would be a lot easier than, say, if they were, um, if they didn't like colorful creatures, if they had something against magic and all that and had a lot of bias, then it would be difficult. But this is why you need to keep an open mind when you come to equestria ponies, because or humans, because there's many kind of creatures, and it's very colorful, if you want to say it. It's a rainbow of creatures. Oh boy, that sounds curious. And of course, once you have decided on something, you decided to accept someone, then it once again influences your experiences, but it also becomes important what you do with it. Now, curiously enough, with humans having some pretty cool technology on and all, I think it would be a lot easier actually for humans to fit in with the ponies from Generation 5 than from 4, because magic would be like a super foreign concept to them, and all the technology that you'd have, like say you have phones and everything, you wouldn't be able to charge that on any outlets in Generation 4, but in Generation 5, you literally might be able to fit right in if you have a phone. I mean, come on, little Pip, or not little Pip, but Pip would be very, very pleased if you had a phone and followed her around. So you'd already have the, say, technological advancement to some degree. Of course, magic might still be new for you, but considering you have sort of almost, I don't want to say identical, but a pretty similar background with technology developing and everything, you'd probably feel more at home than you might expect every pony, since already, just like in the human world where everyone has phones, this might be something that you're already familiar with. Talking a little bit about norms of the social systems like I just did, if everyone's already doing it and everyone is having their phones and you have a phone, then you might be more willing to accept change into something because they're doing it too, so I should do it too. I guess it's a fancy way of describing peer pressure, every pony. But yes, every pony, of course that leads us to this conclusion that yes, it would be pretty interesting, and it is very possible for ponies to get to trust humans because of the similar techie background, the openness, the tolerance, and everything. I think that would lead for a high likeliness of humans trusting ponies, and I believe the differences are not too big, and they can of course be overcome. But like I said, coming back to diffusion a little bit, some ponies will accept this change a little more slowly. Like some pony like Izzy might be a lot more hyper and a lot more ready to accept humans than someone like Posey on the other end of the spectrum. It might be a little bit, but is he gonna mess with my art? Is he going to be a little bit more unusual? But it's just Posey being a little mean. Anyhow, I think this makes for an interesting little dive into the sciencey world of behavioral theories, if that makes any sense. But there's one thing that we can close this on with, every pony, that is also something that relates to both the humankinds and every pony. I'm definitely not flipping the pages of book right now. So, way to end this question, we've technically already answered it, but let's give it a positive outlook too, like you sometimes do in science. And it would probably be the best way to talk a little bit about how the two societies of ponykind and humankind would interact. And I think from technological perspective, this is especially interesting because in the human world, technology is sort of moving towards more acceptance in the public. We are looking at developments in healthcare. We're looking at developments in logistical infrastructure, and how technology is sort of taking on a few more roles that ponies or humans used to be able to do. And I think that would be something similar that we're already expecting in the pony world. Considering we used to have literal horses pulling the carriages back in Generation 4, and that is no longer the case in Generation 5. Things are developing in a little bit of a similar fashion there, and I think that would make it pretty interesting to bring those societies together, because the pace of technology progressing is sort of similar, every pony. Of course, the social norms might be a little bit differently, but the technology would definitely bring them together, and that would help a lot in getting humans and ponies to trust each other pretty quickly, might I think, but you know, there's always going to be a few groups that are slower to accept trust, and I guess for them, you just gotta take your time and be patient, every pony. Alright, every pony, but I suppose with that, I thank all you lovely ponies so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye, and remember, every pony, don't use your phone too much. It's bad for your eyes. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, be notified whenever there's a new video, and there's new stuff for every single day, including a pony who tells you, for Beat the Alicorn, we have found a host, every pony. We are rolling very quick to this first iteration. Might literally already be next week, depending on when they have time.